It's mushroom season here in Central Texas, and I've got mushrooms coming in non-stop. Hi guys, it's Vanessa coming to you from Central Texas, just northwest of Austin in the burbs. And we're going to be harvesting some mushrooms because it is mushroom season. My mushroom buckets and my spent mushroom bags are putting off mushrooms consistently right now, and I wanted to tell you about a really cool program that's here in the Austin and in San Antonio area of Central Texas. It's by a program called Central Texas Mycology, or the Central Texas Mycological Society. And what they do is they connect us with local mushroom farms that then take their spent mushroom blocks that look like this
and help us divert them from going into a landfill and get them into the hands of local gardeners in the area.
These are pretty ugly looking, but you can see that this still has a lot of mycelium, which is the white part that has inoculated all over the grains. Now, this grain spawn is what regular mushrooms are grown out of in a very sterile setting. That is done inside of a mushroom farm setting where humidity is controlled and contaminants are controlled. Once they've gotten the prime amount of fruiting off of those blocks, they're no longer profitable for them to keep on hand. So instead of them throwing them in the dumpster and it going to a landfill, they get connected with us as a set of volunteers that go and pick up large amounts of these blocks 2 to 3 times a week and then disperse them to drop sites all over the Austin metro area and in some places in San Antonio.
And they just ask for a small donation when you pick up blocks to help support all of the education classes and programs they have.
We have drop-offs in the burbs. We have it all over Austin and in the more southern part of Austin as well. Now, these blocks can still give you a lot of mushrooms, and you're going to see how much mushrooms I actually get off of these blocks in this video, because we're going to make some creamy mushroom leek, kale, and Parmesan pot pie. And the blocks that I have fruiting in this video actually had nothing done to them. It's just the perfect weather for mushrooms to fruit. So I simply put them in the base of my garden bed because they are going to get soil put on top of them in my new garden bed, and I use them as the base level filler for my garden beds when I'm building them and getting them filled. One, it saves me a lot of money, even with the small donation that I make for the blocks that I get through this program. Two, it makes a really fungally dominant soil, which starts off my garden beds really well, and they end up looking like this.
These are brand new garden beds. I added new soil, but there's really not a ton of organic matter in them yet, and the bottom layer is filled with about a foot of mushroom blocks, and then there's compost and a mixture of things put on top of them. But I am impressed myself with how well they are doing right out the gate, because usually a first year garden bed just doesn't do as well when it's a raised bed like this. But I add these mushroom blocks to everything. I put them in my wood chips. I put them in my in-ground garden beds. The plus side is you might get a harvest of mushrooms when the weather is damp and under 80 degrees. But otherwise it just builds the organic matter, and this is what it looks like before I get ready to put some soil in. And this is what it looks like when there are some freshly ready to pick piopinos and chestnut mushrooms. So these are piopinos, and the ones that are a little more speckled like these are chestnut mushrooms. They both have a really great flavor to them. They're in the cremini realm of flavor, so nice and rich and nutty, and really great meat replacements if that's what you're aiming to use your mushrooms for. And today I'm harvesting just enough to really make a pretty good sized pot pie with the mushrooms. If you don't use your mushrooms right away, it's good to wrap them in a damp paper towel inside of like a plastic baggie or a glass container. So you can see that's what I'm pulling them from here. And then I'm just doing a rough chop. You can pretty much use all the way down to the base of the stem on these guys. They're pretty tender, but they do have texture, which is why I say they're a good substitute for meat. So I just give a rough chop to some mushrooms, and then I'm chopping up some leeks. I didn't grow these leeks, but I do love to grow leeks, and I have some growing in the garden right now. And leeks are very dirty, so I like to slice them and then put them in some water, move them around a lot, kind of break them up, and then drain off that water. And then this is some Tuscan kale from the garden. This is my favorite kale to grow. It's very hardy. It holds up very well. It doesn't kind of shrink like how spinach does. So I just took it off the middle rib, and then I'm giving it a nice chiffonade. This pie is meant to be hearty, but it's also meant to get a lot of veggies into our diet, because sometimes I still fall behind on eating veggies, even though I have a garden. And this is a little bit of atomic red carrots, and then I'm using the greens from the carrots as a parsley, just as part of, the seasonings. Now, I'm gluten-free, so I'm kind of just making a blind baked gluten-free crust with King Arthur gluten-free blend of flour, but I did make a big mistake with this crust, and I knew I was doing it when I made it. I kind of threw in some room temp butter, and then I really wanted to try to make like a flaky crust. That's really hard to do with gluten-free. It is possible, but I just didn't do the steps that were necessary. So I added an egg, and what this should have been was a really wet drop biscuit dough. That would have given me a little bit more tender of a crust, but here you can see I'm forming it it to try and layer it, smashing those layers back down to get like a flaky crust. And did it work? Kind of. I don't know. Not the best, but it's gluten-free and you guys got to just give me a little allowance there on that. The next step is to caramelize the leeks. And I didn't even fully caramelize these leeks, but your goal is to put some oil in a skillet or a little bit of butter if you want, throw in the leeks, get them sweated down. But the more you can develop caramelization on them, the sweeter they'll be, which goes with the other flavors that we're putting into this. I threw in my carrots and my carrot tops as my parsley, and then just got those really married down together in the skillet. Added in my kale and my mushrooms, and I'm seasoning along the way, by the way, and everything starts to kind of get this homogeneous type texture. At a certain point, I decided that I would add some cream of chicken that's gluten-free because I realized I didn't have any cream, but cream would be ideal in this scenario. The cool thing about the cream of chicken that's gluten-free, it's kind of got a roux base, so it's going to make everything nice and creamy really quickly without having to cook down any more of the excess moisture that's in the mixture. So to contrast the sweetness of the caramelized leeks in there, pick up on the umami flavors of the mushrooms, I'm adding in a layer of some shaved Parmesan. And here's where the fun part is. It's me trying to get this gluten-free crust on top of this pie. Yeah. Now you know why I said that this would be better with a drop biscuit dough on top, because I'm essentially having to drop this biscuit dough on top. But it turned out well. I just kind of smashed it down and then formed it along the edges so it'd be a nice crust. And this is why I like to cook things in a cast iron if I know I'm going to put it in the oven after I'm done with the sauteing part of it. So I'm just doing a light egg wash on top of this, and then I preheated my oven to 375. Really, the filling is already done, but we're just trying to get a nice crispy crust on the top of this pot pie. And after about 15 to 20 minutes, I think we did actually get there. So let's crack into this bad boy and see if I screwed it up or not. So far, the crust is cutting well, and look at that. We got a pretty good gluten-free leek mushroom pot pie from the garden.
I hope this video has inspired you to maybe try your hand at growing your own mushrooms, or at a minimum, check out some of the cool programs that are in your area, like the Central Texas Mycological Society, that help divert waste and increase the quality of soil that gardeners like you and I love to use. As always, I appreciate you guys making it to the end of my video. It's kind of cold out here right now, and I'm not really dressed for the weather, so I will see you next time. But remember, it's okay to try new things, even if you fail, because if you never grow, you'll never know.
And if you're more interested in learning how to be a volunteer, how to get people connected with mushroom blocks, or how to find the mushroom blocks yourself, I have all the information and links available in the description of this video. And this is what it looks like when you go to the centraltexasmycology.org. You can become a member to help support. They do classes on bucket tech and how to compost and do all the things with the mushroom blocks. And there's information where you can easily sign up to be a volunteer and schedule to do a pickup of mushroom blocks. And if you get more than 50 mushroom blocks, you donate the 50 to a drop-off site, and the rest you get to use in your garden. So happy growing.